It's cause of that damn phone, your mom, in response to literally anything. And to be fair, they're kinda right. Phones have become such a big problem nowadays, and I don't mean for this to be kind of like a boomer-esque take, but just hear me out, right? Bear with me. Because I don't think phones were that big of a problem just 5 years ago, right? You'd hear it often, but I don't actually think that was true. I think this is more of a recent thing. My biggest thing with it is that it's just so easy to doom scroll nowadays. It's so easy to be sucked into your phone and kind of lose touch with reality itself, because there's this common idea that you'll lay down and you'll scroll on your phone and time will just slip by. An hour will feel like 10 minutes. And this wasn't a problem back in the day, 2015 to 2019. You'd have Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, all these social media platforms, but they were almost kind of innocent in a way, right? Of course, they're major companies. They want to keep you on the platform. They want to make money. That part's given, but it was almost not as egregious as it is nowadays. Back then, it didn't feel like you had to fight for your attention. You'd get on these platforms, you'd scroll for a while. Maybe you'd spend a little too long on it, but it wasn't this all-day situation, right? Of course, there's always going to be outliers, but I think the majority of the people who used these platforms back in the day probably used it to maybe a decent amount, but I think it was somewhat well balanced. But it's gotten so much worse now with short form content. This might be a bit of a crazy take, but I really think short form content is one of the worst things to ever be created in like the past 100 years. I really think it's that detrimental to the human psyche and just people as a whole around the world, especially because everything is so optimized for engagement now, right? Back in the day with social media, I feel like it was more of a kind of see what you want to see situation. It didn't feel like passive consumption. It felt like to some extent it was active. You had to kind of really engage with what you were looking at. But nowadays, the algorithm kind of decides what you want to see, right? You only have so much of a say in it, and everything is just optimized for passive consumption. They kind of keep you hooked as much as they can, because your attention is your currency. They want to keep you on the platform. And again, this was still true back then, but I don't think it was as bad as it is now, because short form content really is like this gold mine for these companies that want to keep you on their platforms. And I don't want to be this self-improvement-esque YouTuber and kind of give you the same advice or tell you the same thing that everyone has always said, like your phone is a tool, you should like use it as a tool and whatnot. You hear it so often, but that kind of goes with this like non-stop productivity mindset. I think your phone is a tool, but I think it's also something good to use to like kind of relax and unwind, or just like be entertained. But the biggest thing with anything in life has always been moderation, right? You can do things that aren't necessarily good for you, like eating junk food or fast food, and it's fine as long as it's in moderation. And I feel like that applies to using your phone, and specifically short form content as well. But it's just so impossible, because you got to understand these apps are designed to almost prevent moderation, right? They're designed to keep you hooked, which is why you can have just days of constant scrolling, which is something I feel like honestly a lot of people experience to some extent, right? Like, of course, not everyone's scrolling every day constantly. Okay, they kind of are, I'm not gonna lie, myself included. I'm no messiah. It's not like I've kind of beaten this either. Of course, I feel like you've probably heard the reasons why short form content is so engaging, but if you haven't, it's generally like this idea of gambling, right? That's kind of what short form content is. You'll like scroll through 5 reels, you don't really like feel much about them, and then like on the 6th one you'll kind of get this dopamine hit that'll keep your brain hooked and keep scrolling for like more of those same hits. You get the idea. I'm not gonna get all into the science about it. There's a lot of things you can kind of read into and look into if you want to learn more, but it's designed to be addictive is what you need to know. I will say moderation is important, right? If you can do it in moderation, or if you can just never use it, then you are definitely one of the lucky ones. If you're like time on TikTok or Reels is like 30 minutes a day or less, right? Consider yourself blessed. Maybe you have stronger willpower than me, I don't know, but I feel like for me and a lot of other people, the usage of these short form platforms kind of goes into the hours, right? Like, I wasn't always like this. I was kind of one of those people that kind of refused to download TikTok, almost like a superiority thing. It made me feel better than everyone, and that was like pre 2023, right? But after that, I started kind of scrolling on Reels and shorts and all that. And I can definitely see the change that occurred after I started using short form content. Of course, attention span is one of the biggest things. Like, my attention span really is cooked, and you know, that applies to a lot of different people as well. It is hard to kind of focus on things that I feel like I didn't necessarily have trouble focusing on before. I'm already losing my train of thought, dude. That's how bad it is. It definitely cooks your attention span and your focus and your really even like desire to do things other than scroll. Now, I feel like it's kind of cooked my memory too. I've spent so long consuming short form content. Like, of course, I don't remember any of it. Like, I could probably tell you 1 or 2 like reels or TikToks I remember in like the past 3 years of scrolling. It's so normalized too, right? It's almost seen as a joke in a way to kind of doom scroll or spend this much time scrolling. It really shouldn't be this thing that's almost dismissed by everyone. And of course, this applies to like kids as well. If you have someone on the younger end, like 10 years old, like, I don't mean to be kind of doomer about it, but like, if they're scrolling on like iPads and iPhones all day, they might actually be cooked. It's not good for them, right? It's already not good for us, so it's way worse for people that are younger than us, and it's way worse for people that are older than us, right? Like 50s, 60s, 70s, you know, both demographics that aren't aware of how bad it really is, right? Like, if you have a younger sibling who scrolls short form content, definitely take away their iPad. It's only gonna do them good in the future, right? They'll be like the only kid in like high school, right? Like 10 years down the line that can actually focus or something. If you are looking to try to cut down on how much you consume short form content, one tip I can really give you is to put your phone in grayscale. So iPhone, Android, you can go to the settings, search up grayscale, and it'll pretty much just make your phone black and white. And you wouldn't think it, but color really does have like an incredibly massive effect in how engaged you are on your phone, and specifically when it comes to scrolling. Like, if everything's black and white, you actually get bored pretty quickly. It's not a permanent solution, of course. You can literally just like turn it off and like go back to scrolling and being addicted. I mean, I do that too sometimes, right? Like, I'll put my phone in grayscale, then I'll just turn it off like a few hours later and just like get hooked again. I think if you're kind of scrolling in an engaging way and kind of being aware of how much time is going by, it'll definitely help you not stay like hooked on it for so long, right? It's literally you versus the algorithm. It's almost like a test of willpower. Because I've tried to quit many times before. I've tried quitting permanently. I've tried like moderation. I've tried like all the app blockers and stuff, but there's always like a way to get around them. Like, my position will be that you should quit it if you can. It's like cigarettes. You should quit it if you can, but if it's this thing where you can try to cut it down and do it in moderation, then that might be the best option for you. And, you know, maybe kind of see it as like a test of willpower, you know, understand that, are you really gonna let like an algorithm or like a machine control you? Like, come on, you know, like, have some like willpower in a way. You know, I say that it's not easy, of course. I think if you can try and kind of be aware and be present and try not to let it consume you in the way it does everyone else, I think you'll probably be okay.